a lot, folks. My name is Nick, this is Benny, this is Luke, this is Joe. It's an honor to be here with today. This is Gladys and Tony. I'm just going to play some background music for y'all. Enjoy yourselves. Thank you very much.
Yay!
Thank you.
I think once you have two, you're unless you don't care any more than you credit. Yeah. About 4 hours already. I think I've had 2 so far. It was Donald Trump and Tim Horton. Who knew? We'll clear you out. Like trashy things. It's so funny. It's unpopular. Did you see the audit?
Yeah. y'all so much. It's a pleasure to be here to play for it today. We're going to clear the stage and make some way for some speeches that are coming up. We're going to clear the stage and make some way for some speeches that are coming up to honor Bob. And thank y'all so much for having us. And we're going to see
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Yes, ma'am.
Hey, how you doing? Good. You were great. You were really good. All right, I'm ready. So thank you. Listen. We're glad we could come. Okay. Let me give Tina's phone.
I'm sorry.
He's the
I was going to say, go check out that live. That's what it was. It's like young Bob up the most. So they could have been a music.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Patrick G.
We produced it.
Yeah, it was like coming back.
See the sound. Is the mic loud?
If you want to get started?
Yeah, see if the mic is loud enough. It's not. We get it.
Come up from that side.
There's the mic. Evan, is the mic loud? I don't hear the mic.
Welcome everyone for coming today to celebrate the life of Bob Warnick. And to support the love of his life, Miss Gladys Simon. I know we're gathered here today for a somber occasion, but Bob wanted his memory to be a celebration of love, laughter, music. He loved Zydeco, New Orleans, Dixieland music, which is why we had the phenomenal band. Without further ado, I'll tell you just a little bit about myself. We're not doing a comedy show here. I know we're all like, and we're all comics, so we can't help it sometimes. But I'm Jeannie, and I had the privilege of knowing Bob for a year before he got sick. And he was an exceptional man, and you'll hear from the people at different points of his life how special he really was. But when he got sick, Gladys called me, and she told me that she needed me to take over some of the things that Bob did, which is like running the room.
Sleeping with her.
Yeah. Although I will cuddle up with Gladys in bed whenever she wants, because she doesn't like to be alone at night. Yeah, I had a chance to know him. Bob did tell me I was getting better, so I'm always gonna take that with me. And so I'm Gladys's little helper. She wanted me to let you know that. Yeah. I'm Gladys' little helper. But without further ado, I want to introduce Gay LaRoe, another amazing woman, and Gladys' oldest friend. There you go.
Northern Korea meets my breasts right here. There's an ice block. Oh my God, can you believe we're here for Bob Warnick? Chabugle. Chabugle? Chabugle? Any of you people that missed his very fine memorial service that was in Long Island, that was a few Wednesdays ago, it was very nice. And the sun came out then, and the sun just came out right now, so Bob Warnick has a sunset wherever he goes. Yes, give it up for Bob! I've known Bob and Gladys since 1993.
Wow.
Yes, 1993. I thought I'd have the Gay LaRoe show by now. And we'd all be wildly successful off my back, but someday that will truly happen, it will. I met them at Hamburger Harry's. Back then, the first guy I ever met that did comedy was fucking Tom Marzulli. Thomas Marzulli is here tonight. Yes. I would follow Tom and be his bringer at all these shows because I was too afraid to go on. And all of a sudden, Gladys and Bob were like, "No, come at 11 o'clock, you can go on." And I went on. And I would like light the candles with Bob, and back then they were real candles, they weren't fake candles. So Todd and I have that thing about setting up the room, but I would set up the room because I wanted to be closer to them. And always like, in my real life I make TV commercials, but that's one of my jokes, I fuck my way right to the middle. It's a slow roller, yeah. But it's true, you know, but always in my career I've hired Gladys. I hired Gladys and Bob to be in a TIAA CREF policyholder webisode. Gladys was late, Bob was early, we covered for Gladys. You know, but think about Bob, I didn't know this, but when I went to the memorial, Bob was in World War II, he was born in 1926. My left breast was born in 1962. But Bob was born in 1926 and he lived to 2019 and he came to this room every day, every fucking day, 3 times a week up until February. February of last year when he broke his ankle. And there was that thing at Lips, Gladys. I think we should talk about that thing at Lips. He never really came back from that. Okay, that's a gay club. I understand. I'll let that go. I am gay. But Bob, I didn't know this. He was a code breaker in World War II. And the Army paid for him to go to college. And the Army paid for his health care. And the Army paid for this fucking kick-ass funeral. We were all smoking pot at the cemetery. It was the best funeral I ever went to. Well, not always every minute, but it was really good. And it was surrounded by love, and that's what Bob and Gladys gave us. Bob helped us how to talk. Yeah. You know, I grew up chubby with a cleaning lady, but Bob helped me to speak. He helped me with my sibilant A and my hard and my my hard A and my sibilant S. You know, and he knew how to do. It's funny because when we were at the cemetery, Nori Davis. There's people out of this room that are going to be wildly successful. You don't know that yet, but you will soon. But Nori was like, he still does How Now Brown Cow before he goes up to help him speak. And who taught him How Now Brown Cow? A fucking Bob Warnick. The guy who bought me lamb chops when I was down and out and needed some lamb chops. Give it up for Bob. Yes, you were there, Gene, you were there. We ate lamb chops together. He was good. They were Irish. We're Irish. Lamb is good. Bob didn't eat the lamb, you know, because he could eat a fucking chicken parm like nobody's business. Bob was secretly Italian. And he loved Gladys. And we love Gladys and we love Bob. I don't want to take up too much room. I could go on and on and on. There were a lot of moments at Hamburger Harry's. And there have been a lot of moments here. I came back to this room in 2012, fresh from Hurricane Sandy. I was working at an agency, and this girl from England, and I was fucking miserable at this agency. I was making tons and tons of money, and I was never home, and I was miserable. And this girl from Ireland is like, "You're quite funny, you know, you're quite funny." And I was like, "I am fucking funny." She was from like, where do they do Game of Thrones? Belfast. Whatever. She was from there. But whatever, I digress. That girl brought me back to this room. It was January 13th, 2013. I've been here for 6 fucking years because I love Gladys and Bob, and I want to give it up to everybody. God love Bob Warnick. Who's next? Who gets the mic? Yes! Bring up Celeste Channing.
Oh my God. Here's what I think about Bob. I was trying to think like what I was going to say, and I was like, well, the first thing that comes to mind is like, if OK Boomer needed a mascot, it would definitely be Bob Warnick. Like he was like, please get off my lawn. I love Bob though. It always be, you got that right. He would greet you, hello. That'll be $14. One of the sweetest times, I actually had I don't know, I got to see Bob shortly before he passed away. And even then he was kind of humorous because he was pretty much like, come on Celeste, just make it happen. And I'm like, Bob, I can't intervene with this. Talk to your hospice doctor. He was going to give you lots of good drugs. We'll just make it work that way for you. But it's not going to look good if, anyway. One of my fondest memories of Bob, it was at Hamburger Harry's, and he didn't he was kind of sexist in a good way. Because he didn't we all had to bark, but he didn't like the women to go out in Times Square, right? He's like, no, the ladies stay at the door. And I was like, but Bob, if we're at the door trying to entice people, that looks like we're hookers. We can go in the streets, it's okay. Giuliani's mayor. But one of the sweetest moments I had with him, it was when I was at Gladys's at their place, and I was working on this storytelling thing, and Gladys was sort of helping me through it, and Bob was like, you know, the TV blasting in the bedroom, and all of a sudden I just hear like this like shuffling coming out of the bedroom, with this bathrobe, and he's like, would you like something to eat? And I was like, no, I'm fine. And he's like, he just went in the kitchen anyway, and he's making all this like noise, and he's like rattling and blah 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 blah. And he comes out. I'm thinking he's making like something like, you know, manicotti, something like dope. And he's like, comes out with like a plate of Ritz crackers and American cheese, and a warm can of ginger ale. And I was like, yeah. And it was really actually very sweet, because it was definitely American cheese. He's not, you know, he's not going to eat cheese made by frogs. That was for the older boomers. That was for the boomers! How often do we get to say frog? You got it? You got a lot of things. But one more thing. One of the things I love about Gladys and Bob, and that's how you have to say it, really, in a lot of ways, right? Was that one night I was leaving the comic strip, and I took a picture. Something that said, take out your phone and take a picture of them. And I got a picture of them walking, and they were holding hands. And I wrote, sometimes peanut butter and jelly, sometimes oil and vinegar, but always love.
Hello, I'm Patrick, and I have known Bob and Gladys since the mid-90s, and what I can say is Bob, anybody who's known him has known him to be like one of the most generous, encouraging people, and you know, he kept telling me to stick with the comedy even though everyone else knew better, including myself. But Bob, Gladys, and I just grew to be great friends, and we'd have our quarterly dinners and go see Broadway shows together, which Bob loved and Gladys did as well, and we'd have great times. Bob was a brilliant, generous man, and he, you know, followed financial markets like anything. He got me into Bitcoin before anybody else did. Of course, the guy he introduced me to is in jail still.
Callaway's here. In spirit. He's actually here.
Oh, so he's out.
No, he's in jail.
He's in jail.
Yeah, he is.
Anyways.
Woke up.
Paid a lot of money on that. But I will say, they asked me to be a witness when they decided. Bob and I kept trying to talk Gladys into getting married because there were a lot of benefits to being married, and Gladys had said, no, I don't want to wreck a good thing. You know, we finally talked her into it, and I was honored to be the witness when we went down to City Hall, and it was. I think everybody who knows them can say it was better than a good thing. And you know, when we think of Bob, we think of Gladys, and when we think of the two of you together, we think of a lot of love. So to you and Bob, Gladys.
George! Get him up there.
Mitchell!
Get him up there. There you go.
Go ahead, George.
I used to be George Saltz. Now, my name is just Z, because I'm not allowed to have salt. I'm glad that the Dixieland played nice and loud, because Bob is hard of hearing. I'm sure he'll hear that. And they were just wonderful. I've known Bob for 5 years, since I've been coming to the comic strip. And the first thing I found out was that he and Gladys had a longer, quotes, engagement than I did. I was with my wife-to-be for 9 years before we got married. He and Gladys were together for 25 years.
Wow.
It made my relationship seem like a shotgun marriage. One of the memories I have is after each show, waiting with Bob for Gladys to come out. And you didn't need a watch, you needed a calendar. And, finally Bob would give up and he would just say, come, let's, I'll walk down to the diner and you wait for Gladys and then we'll be there. And a good hour later, there we were, after she, Gladys gave all of her guidance to, all of the comics and everything for that. Bob was, it goes without saying, he was exceptional. And he was just, he was a man of dignity, very clever. And when he told it like it was, to every comic. And when he approved, it meant a lot to me. When he gave me the stamp of approval, and he enjoyed something. And there's just so many kinds of memories and so many good times. And Bob was, and he had a good sense of humor, very quick, very funny. And he helped me also with it's interesting. I managed to beat the problem on stage. I don't say all the time. Here it's coming back again. But he was able to help me with that. And it wasn't with the brown cow. He had told me just to read something regularly over and over and over again. Sure enough, I did. And he gave lots of feedback. And he gave feedback to various people. And it was just, they say opposites attract, and they were. And they just together a wonderful couple. And that's about enough said, because there are other people to say it. But God bless you.
Hi everybody, I'm Janice Mazzetti. "20 years ago, I started doing stand-up by accident. Gladys's room was on 2nd Avenue. There was Hamburger Harry's, and there was Cold Waters, which was never cold, it was always warm with all the love. And Bob was at the door, and everybody loved Gladys. All the comics wanted to go out with Gladys. They all loved her. And she'd be in the bathroom studying all her lines, and everybody would come to Janice, which was me. Go ask Gladys if I can go on. Go ask Gladys. And then Bob came into our life. And it was so different. It was like a completed Gladys. She's a little thing, but all of a sudden she looked larger than life. And this man loved her like I've never seen anybody. Give him a hand, because I only wish I had money back in the day, because he told Linda Hershkovich to invest. And she did. So she did so good. And I always thought of him where he'd be very dapper, very sweet, kind. And would talk to people. Like comics were a little Meshuggah, have you noticed? They were a little nuts. All right? So to be there every week and to help my friend, and then he falls in love with her and she's happy. It was beautiful. And I'd be walking on the streets going, comedy, 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 you look like you could use something, you wanna go upstairs? And every weekend, my parents would come with my whole family. And they'd come to see Gladys, and we had Arthur of New York at the time. If anybody remembers Arthur of New York. Arthur of New York, very funny off stage. And every weekend we'd go to a diner afterwards and we'd all talk about comedy and what was working and wasn't working. And Bob would always say to me, the diva's here. And that was back in the day, 28 years ago, I'm 55, when diva was a good word. And whenever I called his house, he would say, "Copy room, hello, diva." And that meant I was on the phone. So for the rest of my life, as long as I will be on stage, two people that I've always loved. They said I'm a little Gladys. I take it and I take it as a compliment. People tell me I remind you of you. All I wanted in my life was to be on stage and to have a man like you did. That's all I wanted. Give it up for Gladys and Bob. I love all of you.
There's no MC? No MC. No MC? Jeannie is the MC. Where's the stage?
Gene walked him up, it's his first time.
Angel!
I told Uncle Bob for the memorial, I am going to be a fucking drunk. And I did my job. Anyway, thanks a lot for having me here. Uncle Bob, oh man. Let me tell you how beautiful you are.
What happened to Bob?
Damn, you look good. Anyway, listen. Uncle Bob, I call him Uncle Bob, because he was my uncle. Uncle Bob, he had a great sense of humor. Great sense of humor. One night, when Gladys had the workshop here, I'm outside with Uncle Bob, by the bar. And I said, Uncle Bob, I heard that you did porno movies. No, porno movies. And he said, yes, that was during the silent movies. And I said, Uncle Bob, you guys know my story. It's nothing to hide about me. I do cocaine. I told Uncle Bob, you know that cocaine stunts your growth. People get smaller when you do cocaine. He said, maybe I should do cocaine. Because I'm too tall for Gladys. But Uncle Bob was the best, man. After the Gladys workshop, right? He used to take us to the diner, right? To the diner, and he paid for my meal. So now that he's gone, who the fuck is going to buy the dinner? Right? I like to bang you. But this is, I can't do it now because this is, honey, this is a family show. Anyway, listen, Uncle Bob was a sweetheart and he wrote me a note, man, and I still keep the note. He wrote me a little note and said, I am your #1 fan. You are so talented. You are the best. And I love him for that, I still keep the note. He inspired comedians, right? When like Julian, when you started, right? He said to Julian, don't give up, man, keep going, right? And that's why he's with Phyllis. Yeah.
It's not that way.
I like how you guys get the joke one by one. This is you're a little too late. But anyway, listen, I am here. The best thing about, before Uncle Bob passed away, I went to Gladys' apartment right where she lived, and I took a picture with Uncle Bob, and that I cherish the photo for the rest of my life. God bless Uncle Bob. I love you. show the sign in English. Yeah, man. Hello, Mama.
My name is Yamanika Saunders. I moved to New York 20 years ago, and I always say that when I moved here, I was a skinny white bitch from Maryland. And that joke, obviously, Gladys helped me with. Gladys helped everyone. I got an opportunity to meet Gladys first, and then I met Bob, and I was like, who the fuck is he? Because it was such an odd couple. He was so tall, and she was so short with little hands, giving him a lot of confidence. So they were a very beautiful couple. They became my surrogate parents. I remember, like, they kept me in that fucking Hamburger Harry. My career could have been off the ground 20 years ago. I was there just every day, and Bob and I, we love to talk, we love to fight. Everybody's gonna tell nice stories about Bob. Me and Bob used to get into it. And he'd tell me, listen, I know how it is. I said, no, I fucking know how it is. But the reality is Bob did know. He was very wise. He was very gentle. He was kind. He had a great spirit. But he also knew how to uplift people when they were down.
Yeah.
And that was like the best thing, because it's a hard quality, especially in this business. When you move here, I moved here, I was 20 years old. Now I'm 41. You know, we have to look at the journey that we have from the beginning with people. And that's the most important thing that I think, you know. Years and years after I had left Gladys and Bob, I saw them, and I was like, you still alive? Everybody thought Bob was 100. Like, the day I met him, I was like, Benjamin Franklin lost a lot of weight. But he was still around, and he was still kicking, and he still had his mind. And, you know, I've been to a lot of memorial services and funerals and things like that, and it's always such a hard time, such a sad time, because, you know, people went out and they didn't have any state of mind, and they didn't have any longevity to enjoy life. And he really got to enjoy life and impact so many people and just be there and just be such a dynamic partner for Gladys. Gladys needed him in her life, you understand? And he took care of her the way a partner should. And I know that Bob did not leave until he knew Gladys would be okay. You understand? I know this is a really difficult time, but the love you had with Bob, we're all envious of it. Janice said it. I haven't found a man until just 3 weeks ago. God bless you. God bless Bob. Wonderful spirit, wonderful man. Amen.
So I think I'm the only one here who's not a comic. I've been laughing at Gladys since we were in our 20s. We've been through a lot of life together. And I was there when Gladys first met Bob. But I was also there before Gladys met Bob. And, you know, we sort of grew up together. And the thing I want to say about Bob was, because you all know him from comedy, but I knew him before from other things. Bob was, do you all know that he had a cable television show?
Yeah. Yes!
He had cable, and it was, you know, when cable was free and you could just go online. It was called, Gladys, what was it called?
Stimuli!
Stimuli, and it was. He brought on writers and actors, and some of them very well known, and teachers and professors, and comics, and a dentist. A pet specialist, a veterinarian, who would, those last two would teach people about their teeth, about how to take care of your dog or your cat, and it was like the show was everything. And that was before Bob met Gladys. Bob basically, I don't know if you know, he was a World War II veteran.
No.
And when Bob he graduated high school very young. He had not turned 17 yet. And he enlisted in the Army right away. And after basic training, Bob was so smart and he was so good with words that he became a code breaker. They sent him to Germany, and for 2 years he was a code breaker over there. And that's why his funeral was a military funeral. He was very American, passionate about America. We didn't agree politically at all. And Gladys wouldn't even put the obit in the Times, because the Times was not allowed in the house. Bob loved words. He read the dictionary every day. I bet you don't know that. And one of the things I knew that was he took a lot of speech lessons. You know, Bob was in Actors Equity all his life. When he was, his first job was working for Prudential, and he was a stockbroker, hated it. And when he would leave, and he wasn't very good at it, except he made some lifetime friends, such as Isaac Asimov, and they had a correspondence, you know, forever. I mean, just, the letters are unbelievable. And in addition, he was a gentleman. You know, he was a true gentleman. Wearing this was Bob loved bright colors, particularly orange. And I was a black person. So when he was working at Prudential, when he was done, he got out of there at 5 every day as fast as he could, and he was in the scenic department at CBS. And he would go over and work in the scenic department, and that's when he started his TV show. I mean, it's pretty unbelievable what he did in life. He was just interested all the time in new things, you know, and I could say so much about him. You know, I've known Gladys for so long. We've been through marriages together, deaths together, not a death like this. And you know, Bob brought Gladys into reality, but she gave him many, many more years than he would have otherwise had. He was very sick 20 years ago, and Gladys kept him going, and you guys kept him going. You really did. I mean, he loved each other's faces. I've heard other people say that. Gladys, you know, never goes to bed until the morning. That wasn't Bob. Bob was up in the morning and he would go shopping, you know, every day for 2 days. He loved to go to the market, and he didn't want any waste. That was it. He only shopped for 2 days at a time. He always checked Gladys's purse to make sure she had money, right? And even though he and her were very different, they started to get on the same path. He gave her a dog, but he was allergic. You know, there's so many things I could say, and you know, they would, like every day at 3 o'clock when Gladys kept those hours, Bob would get up at like 3 in the morning and they would watch movies together. And they loved it, old movies. And Bob would write, he would read the critics' reports and then he'd write his own. He would leave Gladys notes every day. Very basic things to do, like shut off the water, close the door, you know, those kind of things. He would be so proud of Gladys today, I would say.
Yeah. I'm so happy that she's having this, which was hard for her to do, but she's done it. And since Bob has died, Gladys has been taking care of things, as hard as it is. You know, she's been taking them, you know, a little bit at a time, and he would be so happy that she was doing those things. It was really important to him. And I would say they were meant for each other, because she really gave, when he was very, very ill, he said to her, you gave me life. You know, you made my life. And at his 90th birthday, he like talked for 10 minutes about Gladys, you know, and it was like, wish we had taped it. It was unbelievable. And like you all say, we all wish for a relationship like that. You know, they were very opposite, but on the basic things that are really important, they were the same. So I love that. Because she loves calling you and making the dates and all of that. So even if she doesn't return your calls, keep on calling. And this is a really hard time for her. And, you know, and she may not return the calls because it is so hard. But she really wants to hear from you. So that's it.
My name is Justin Hawkins. Probably been known Bob for like 10, 11 years. Met him when I was like 25, 35 now. Bob and Gladys, like, I probably owe those two the most out of anybody I've ever met since I've been in New York. Like, pretty much everybody I know I've met through this room and still keep in touch with to this day. Bob, other than like just seeing him daily and shooting the shit with him, like, he saved my ass. He saved my ass big time. There was probably a stretch about 6-7 years ago where I lost my job, couldn't get a new one, had a lot of shit going on in my life, and had run out of couches and places to live. And so Bob was like, I got a spare apartment. You can crash here till you get back on your feet. And that apartment was a shithole. It was like a 1930s apartment. Like, I hadn't seen anything like that. There's no TV, no internet, no nothing, just your thoughts, books, and a couch. And I would periodically, I never knew if he was going to be there. Like, when I got back from being out in the city, like, there's a couple times where he was just sitting in a recliner asleep, and I wasn't sure if he was alive or dead. I'm like, uh-oh, like, I don't know how this is going to go. But, like, I remember, like, I'd get the mail for him and bring it to him here at this comic strip, and, like, I remember the first night, one of the first few nights that I spent there was during Hurricane Sandy, and I was sleeping on the couch there, and I had my back turned towards the door, and all of a sudden I hear these latches on the door start to unlock, and like, somebody's coming into this apartment right now. Am I going to have to fight somebody? And I look out the corner of my eye, it's this old woman walking around the apartment, and I'm like, okay, I don't have to fight this person, but I don't want them to die when I turn on the light. And so I turn on the light, I'm like, hey, what are you doing here? And she's like, oh, it's the darndest thing. I came here to return this book back to Bob and to leave the keys for my mail because I'm going out of town. I'm like, okay, it's 4 a.m. I'm sure Bob really appreciates you bringing that book back. And she left, and I couldn't tell whether it actually happened. And the next day when I saw Bob, I'm like, hey, Bob, some old woman broke into your apartment at like 4 o'clock in the morning. He goes, oh, that's so-and-so. Don't you think she's fat? And like, I wasn't really looking at her that way. She's like 70-something years old. He's like, well, her and this other woman in the building keep asking to take me out for drinks, but I don't want to do it, so I told him you would go. And I'm like, what? He's like, hey, I'm letting you stay at the apartment. I'm like, okay, fine. So I went to a Mexican restaurant with these 2 old women, and they drank me under the table. And that was just one of the many stories of Bob. Like, I'd come there, and sometimes like, he'd just be there, we'd just start talking. He would complain about Hillary Clinton, and yeah. That's just one small, blip, like, in the larger picture of like how amazing Bob was and how fantastic this room and Gladys and him are to everybody. I just can't say enough about a man who was just fucking awesome. All right.
You know, it's funny, I just saw Tom Kelly. I started my second time ever performing was at Gladys's Comedy Room in Hamburger Harry's in, 1999. And those were the days where you called on a landline, and I think my second through 190th show was with Gladys and Bob, and as I see an old friend Josh Comer's come in, I see Yamanika in the corner, and I look at so many familiar faces, I think about Bob as being a college professor of comedy. It's like goodbye, Mr. Chips, ladies and gentlemen. It's, you know, and I could never tell during my years with Bob if he loved comedy, but you always knew that he loved Gladys. And it sounds crazy, but like there were just days where, like a dad, you felt like he was sick of us, and he was there because Mom forced us to stay with him, you know? I mean, and I don't know, Bob and Gladys were enigmas, parent figures. They were higher than life. I didn't know they had last names till the age of Facebook, ladies and gentlemen. Anybody else like that? Right? I'm pretty sure I asked him what was his last name. He just said Bob. I asked him how old he was. Honestly, it is not until this very moment I realized how old that man was. And he was like, "It's none of your business." He was proper with me. I mean, it's amazing how close you guys were, because in the 90s I projected my daddy issues on him. And I think of all the lives in comedy he touched, Yamanika, Josh, and all these other successful people here, all the people he told to stick with it, and they did. And the other lives he touched, the people he told to quit and are not here today and are probably going to get alive. They really are. No, and it's funny, I reached out to Melissa Rauch, who was on Big Bang Theory, and you talk about all the names they've always dropped, you know, and so many more to people who are just doing this for the love of doing it, to people who are making names you don't read every day. It's not just Jim Gaffigan and Zach Galifianakis. I'm there too, Gladys, okay? And everybody else in this room is. The names that may not ring a doorbell, but people who are living good lives. We all started with you, and frankly with Bob, because without Bob, God knows who would have gotten kicked out of Hamburger Harry's really quick. Bob was... I don't want to call Bob the brains. Bob was the heart. He was the organization. He kept us together, and I think I'm repeating a lot of things you've all said, but I felt the urge to repeat it, mainly because I wanted to perform here without paying $15. But like everybody here, I had a gap. You know, like there's that gap where you finally get things going and the bird leaves the nest, and there's always that part where the bird needs to come back to the nest. And I remember calling 212-832-1762, getting booked for a Wednesday night spot because I needed to warm up for a TV spot. It was a 9-year gap, and they moved from Hamburger Harry's to here, and you get that welcome home that you wanted. You see Gladys at the door, there's a big hug. Tom, I love you. Good to see you. I'm so proud of you. All the stuff you want. And then you go up to Dad, you go up to Bob, and he says, "Tom, just so you know, we're not charging $5 anymore." And I don't know if everybody, I know in our day, Josh, and I know Yamanika's day, we had it where the one image, and Melissa Rauch texted back, and this is the one image that I'll remember when you talk about when you're young and you're full of potential and anything can happen. The one image I'll remember is at the back of Hamburger Harry's, there was like the audience, then a giant supporting pillar, and the rest of the audience behind it. And when it was time to get off stage, it was Bob holding a candle and a kind smile. And that's something I'm going to remember, and it's just in my head all week. And just like years ago, I don't know how to end on a laugh or an applause break. But Gladys, this is for you. All right?
All right, Tom basically stole my act.
Just like the old days.
Yeah.